Serge was just purchased in the book. The monologue is written for the character of Serge, and this monologue will occur before the beginning of the play, the day after Serge purchases the painting. I chose to insert a monologue here, as in the play, Mark has the privilege of introducing Serge and his painting, and I felt that that belonged to Serge. He should be able to introduce himself and his painting. After all, he's a grown man. I will be playing the role of Serge, and I used this monologue to help me understand his character better. Sunday, before the arrival of Mark. Next slide, please. Finally! After months I have it. What a magnificent piece of work it is. And what a bargain for 200,000! I mean, it looks very similar to his current works, but this is an original 70s Antrios, and this sets it apart. Yes, only a true connoisseur can appreciate this painting. It takes training, an involved apprenticeship that you have to go through to truly appreciate this masterpiece. Such simple monochromatic beauty draws expertly trained eyes. Magnetic. The Antrios has such a resonance to it. White, shades of white, artistic value, economic worth. God knows what this painting will be worth in 5 years' time. Unfortunately, such subtleties can only be appreciated under the natural beauty of sunlight. The perfection is in the technique, the attraction out of the simple purity of white. But if you look at it from just the right angle, the lines seem to come out suddenly. It helps that my house is monastic and Spartan, a perfect setting for the Antrios, and the future paintings I plan to collect. Absolutely. Yes, perfect setting. Now, who would believe that a painting so plain as this would be worth so much? In fact, just the other day when I bought it, I got an offer from Huntington himself. Huntington for 220,000. If he offered me 220,000 yesterday, imagine what this would be worth in a few years. I wonder what Mark will make of it. He's been my friend for some 15 years now. An intelligent fellow. Smart. Smart enough to see the value of an investment. I think I'll invite him over tomorrow. I want to hear what he has to say. Okay, next slide, please. So in writing this monologue, I tried to blend it as nicely into the play as possible. And I felt that this happened because there's a juxtaposition created between two different points of view. I have Serge here, who says nothing but good about the painting, followed immediately by Mark's monologue that begins the play proper, where he talks about Serge as his friend who likes art. An example of this added effectiveness can be seen in my monologue. I say, as Serge, that Mark is an intelligent fellow who's been my friend for 15 years. This establishes the relationship between Mark and Serge. And when Serge comes in and starts his monologue with his sort of condescending view towards art and Serge's purchase, it creates a better exaggeration of views, as well. And the audience has a background relationship between the two, and a light suddenly clicks in the audience's mind that something is wrong here. Next slide. In writing this monologue, I tried to mimic the way Serge spoke, so I used short sentences. Absolutely. I want to hear what he has to say. Short sentences like that, like he used in the book. Next slide. I actually quoted Serge in my monologue, if you didn't notice. Magnetic, resonance, he's going through a similar phase now. And I felt that this made sure it was as authentic as possible. Next slide. I find that Serge is a perfectionist. One of the reasons he is such a successful dermatologist is because of this. However, this quality is not only limited to his workplace, but spills onto other areas in his life. He now thinks of himself as an art connoisseur, a refined person who thinks more highly of himself. Hence the clash between Mark and his friend, as Serge usurps Mark's alpha male status within the group dynamic. He is a modernist, and his taste in art and his home reflect this, and uses short, clean sentences when he speaks. Next slide. Aside from the aesthetic beauty of the work, Serge only sees the fiscal side of art, or the monetary side of art. His comments have no real substance when you actually look at them. This is why I felt that Serge's underlying desire is to become an art dealer or an art collector, and that's why I said the paintings that I plan to collect in the future. He keeps talking about Huntington and the value of the painting. And next slide. 220 is a very important figure to him. Another thing that brought out his underlying desire was the fact that the thing that ticked him the most, the comment from Mark, was calling the painting a piece of shit. This invalidated his decision to purchase the painting, and Mark made Serge feel like he wasted his money, his 200,000 francs. Next slide, please. Serge's materialistic attitude is also revealed in my piece. One of the first things I said was, "What a bargain for 200,000." And usually, some of the first things you say and exclaim are the most important things. The Atrios has such a resonance to it. Wide shades of white, artistic value, economic worth. I started off talking like the art critic Serge thinks he is, But slowly, as he kept talking and talking, his subconscious thoughts bubbled to the surface, and he ended up talking about the economic worth of the painting. The inner dermatologist came out, not the art connoisseur. Of course, in art, technique is important, but what is equally as important is the reactions, thoughts, and feelings generated within the viewer. And that's why I think, next slide, Serge's understanding of art is very shallow. Again, magnetic resonance, great words, but no real substance. Over here he says, look at it from this angle. Can you see the lines? When I was reading that, I was seeing Serge in his clinic, holding the face of a woman. Look at it from this angle. Can you see the lines? It was more of aesthetic and face value than the underlying feelings. Oh, over here he says, the resonance you get from something monochromatic, and he immediately retracts this statement when he's talking to Ivan. I think it's because he felt that Ivan would think a monochromatic painting of lesser value, and he didn't want to provoke Ivan into another invalidating statement like Mark. Next slide. Alright, talk about Mark. Mark is an aeronautical engineer, and engineers not only see the whole beauty of an entire piece or a design, they pay attention to the nitty-gritties, the inner workings of it. And in terms of art, these inner workings are the thoughts and feelings generated in the viewer. That's why he is the only one who comes to the conclusion, any meaningful conclusion about the piece of work. Yes. Next slide. Oh, sorry. Back. Previous slide. Here, Mark reveals what this piece means to him. Again, personally, art is not only the face value, but what you feel as the viewer. And that full appreciation of the art requires both of these elements. That's why I think only Mark is the only one who fully appreciated the Atrios, despite the fact that he dismissed it early on as, a piece of dirt. Shit. Next slide, please. Okay. How do we perceive art? Serge is the connoisseur who pretends to be the know-it-all of art, but only sees the paintings for money and for their aesthetic side, their face value. He's a dermatologist after all. Mark, despite the fact that he dismisses the work as a piece of shit early on, is the only one who actually responds with some sort of conclusion at the end. What the Atrios truly means to the characters Mark and Serge is totally contradictory to what they would lead the other to believe. Serge appreciates art, but only sees money and beauty. Mark, on the other hand, pretends to dismiss the painting and be offended by the purchase, while he has the actual conclusion at the end. In the process of studying these two characters, I have discovered that underneath all their dialogue, they both have conflicting views and feelings about the piece of art. Serge again says he appreciates the art, and Mark says he hates it. But they're totally opposite in what they actually think. This ties in with the universal theme that there are many different perspectives, many different lenses, if you will, through which we can perceive reality. As human beings, we are capable of putting all these different lenses on, or filters, even though these filters may seem contradictory to one another. but it is these contradictions that make us human.